Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering the One Piece Fish-Man Island Saga, which is the first saga and the first couple of arcs back from the 2-year time skip. The first little pit stop before the Straw Hat crew ventures into the new world. Of course, as I do with these videos, I'm really only going to be talking about what I believe to be the highlights and parts that are worth reviewing from the story. If you want to get a more complete understanding of what happens in the arc, maybe watch it or read it yourself. But I'm mainly going to be talking about parts of it that I liked, or just not necessarily I liked all of it, but parts that stood out in some way. So of course these highlights might not be the same highlights everybody else had, which is completely alright, because of course this is my review, my video. So these are the things that stood out to me. If I covered literally everything that I read during this saga, this video would be much longer than it needed to be. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way first. So with all that being said, I hope you guys do enjoy the video, and if you do, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I would greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into it. So the first arc that we're going to be talking about, I'm going to breeze through a little bit because it's a pretty short arc, but I think that's really effective in what it does. And that is what I call the 3D2Y arc, or the Return to Sabaody arc. Everybody was off doing their own thing, training for 2 years, and now that it's time, everybody is meeting back up on the Sabaody archipelago. Which is one of my favorite arcs in the series, the first time they were there, the first Sabaody arc. But we do get a glimpse of where everybody has been at and what's been going on with their training. So of course we all know Luffy was training with Rayleigh, where he is taught about all of the different colors of hockey, or forms of hockey, whatever. They call it colors, but it doesn't make much sense to me. There's observation hockey, of course, armament hockey, and conqueror's hockey, or the color of the Supreme King, whatever. All of those things Luffy is taught about and trained in, so when we meet back up with him when it's time, he has advanced his conqueror's hockey, which is one of the first things that we see him pull off. But he also has increased observation hockey and armament hockey. We also see glimpses of Zoro training with Mihawk on the castle island that Mihawk has, with Perona, who is now there. Sanji, of course, is on the weird love island that Iva is on, with all of these cross-dressing freaks. There, he learns how to cook certain invigorating dishes and stuff that are supposed to help boost healing and all that kind of stuff. Just new, like, basically One Piece soul food. Also, he learns how to run a lot faster because he's trying not to be turned into a woman by all of these freaks. And during this time, he also learns how to do basically what is the shave technique. I believe it was called, that the CP9 used, where they're basically able to walk through the air. I think that was the shave. I could be wrong, or unless it was something called something else, like airwalk, or I don't know, I can't remember. But he's able to do that now too. Nami is on this island, that's like a sky island, where she's learning about weather from all of these scholars. Chopper is on this island of medicinal herbs with these cavemen and these like giant birds. Robin, she's thrown into slavery at first, but then she is rescued by the Revolutionary Army. So during this time, we can maybe assume that she met with Dragon even. Who knows? But we do know that, you know, she was with the Revolutionary Army during this time. Usopp is on this island where he's in like the center of this dense forest, where the further you go into the outskirts, the more dangerous it is. So trying to escape this island is almost impossible because he's stuck in the center of it, and the more you go out, the harder it is to get out. Of course, he does get out, and so we see a major change in Usopp, which I want to briefly talk about him because Usopp is one of my least favorite characters, just in general. I really hated Usopp, to be honest. Especially with what happened in Water 7, really left a bad taste in my mouth. I thought Usopp's whole thing was terrible, and was just a whiny brat character, with him lying all the time, everything. He was just a really bad character. But when we meet up with him again here on the Return to Sabaody, and even at the end of the war arc when we see him begin his training, I started to like Usopp a lot more. Especially even now where I'm at reading through Dressrosa, which is a few arcs ahead of what this review. He's just a really solid character. He's still a bit of a coward, that nothing has changed there, but his character is definitely a lot more bearable than it once was. Brook becomes like a rock star, known as the Soul King, after being enslaved by cultists, and it was like a whole thing. And then Frankie, he ends up on this abandoned island, or this abandoned laboratory, where Vegapunk, I almost said Vegapunk, where he developed certain machines and stuff and technology, and Frankie uses this time to research and study these resources and implement a lot of it into himself until he creates like a new big old cyborg body. Then we finally get to see all of our favorite Straw Hats and their glow up as they all are meeting back up here on Sabaody Archipelago. And it's here that, on the island, that we're introduced to one of our main conflicts, because we start to see how infamous the Straw Hat crew has become in those last 2 years, mainly because of Luffy's endeavors during the Paramount War. He definitely made a name for himself there. Basically, everybody knows the name of Straw Hat Luffy at this point. So much so to the point where here on Sabaody there is an imposter crew. There's like these imposters pretending to be the Straw Hat crew and recruiting minor league pirates from all across what they call Paradise, which is a term that I've learned recently, which refers to like the first half of the Grand Line, which the second half of the Grand Line being the New World. So all of these people from this first area, they're trying to create like a massive fleet to take on the New World, or at least that's what I understand. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was like the whole point. Anyway, what's kind of funny and a bit of a coincidence is that there's this imposter Straw Hat crew, but everybody thinks that they're the Straw Hats. And because of that, it draws the attention of the Navy. And the Navy is coming to Sabaody, and they're looking for the Straw Hats, only to find the imposter Straw Hats. But the problem is that the real Straw Hats are here too. And like, I don't know, it's just it's hard to explain, but it's a weird situation where they were expecting to find the real ones. They found the fake ones, but the real ones were there too. So it's like, oh, this is a win. So now the Straw Hats, now that everybody is meeting back up, has to try and get out of there, because we're faced against the pacifistas, all of the different Kuma. And I think a really cool part about this scene, this sequence of events here, is that it's the first little look into how much our crew has grown over the last few years. Because if you guys remember, back in the first Sabaody arc, our Straw Hats had a very hard time against the pacifistas, and everybody was pretty much wiped out. When I say wiped out, I mean everybody was like separated, and that was sort of why everybody was training on their own and all that, right? But now, Zoro and I think Luffy and Sanji, our monster trio, make light work of these pacifistas that do show up and are here. There may have been one or two of them, I can't remember, but they are made light work of. And so that's our first little glimpse into the growth of our crew. And from here, our crew sets off on the Sunny, which has finally finished its little coating thing so that it can go underwater, and our crew heads out into the dark depths of Fish-Man Island. Overall, I'd say that this first arc back is pretty good. I'd probably give it maybe a 7 out of 10. I don't know if that's too generous or not. I don't know. It was nothing too special, honestly, but it was just fun to see how much our Straw Hats have grown in that little short amount of time. Everybody's new designs, everybody meeting up. Of course, me reading it hadn't been long at all since, they were just themselves and they were together last, but for them it's been years. So getting to see them come together again and be like, oh, I haven't seen you in so long, almost like a family reunion, right? I really did enjoy that. And yeah, it was just fun to watch. And it also, as a reader, it felt like a really big achievement. Because seeing all this unfold, it's like, I did it. I finally made it to the time skip, and I'm like halfway through. So for me, it was very, I don't know. It just felt like an achievement. And so for all that, again, not too special. It was just entertaining, and that's why I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10.
One eternity later.
Now, moving on, we do have the Fish-Man Island arc. I'm not going to talk super long about this arc in particular, just because it wasn't really my favorite, and it was a little bit of a disappointment, not going to lie. It was still entertaining, as One Piece, for the most part, usually is. And it wasn't as abysmally bad as something like Long Ring Long Land or Syrup Village or anything like that. But I'd say it's probably on the same quality of writing as like maybe even Skypiea, maybe slightly better. It just wasn't my favorite. Really, the only redeeming quality of, I say the only redeeming quality, but the thing that made it worthwhile, I suppose, was the fact that it was our first arc back after the time skip, and we get to see just our new and improved Straw Hats in action. It's because of this that I'm not really going to touch on a lot of specific parts about it, because I feel like a lot of it blended together and there wasn't a lot to it, I guess. So firstly, talking about the main villain, Hody Jones. I did think that he was an okay villain, not the best. He was just he felt like kind of a pushover, because the last few arcs in the series we've had villains that really posed a threat. I mean, the first two big villains that we had that were like final bosses, being, Arlong and Crocodile. I mean, they were menaces, but they were like the final threat of an entire saga. The last few arcs, though, with all of Marineford, we were exposed to so many powerful characters that coming into the new world, and just like our final stop before we enter it, Hody Jones in Fish-Man Island did seem like a powerful enemy, but compared to everything we've seen, he just felt like a bit of a pushover. Sure, he posed a threat, but I think, if Luffy could have just had his way, they would have been able to mess him up. But because there was so much political stuff happening and they had to be very careful with what they were doing, not only that, but they were affecting, it wasn't just like a one-on-one battle. So many other people and all of the citizens of the Fish-Man Island were involved as well. So it wasn't a very simple conflict. And I think that's what made it seem so difficult. But honestly, if it was just like the Straw Hats versus that little crew that they had, they would have gotten mopped up big time, especially with the help of Jinbei on their side. Speaking on the actual major conflict of this arc with all of the fish racism stuff that we do see, I did think that was quite interesting. Bringing it back all the way to the Sabaody archipelago arc, we saw, just how Hachin and Kami were treated on the Sabaody archipelago. And I guess when we first were introduced to fishmen in Arlong Park, we didn't really get a good idea of how they were treated. That was something that was introduced a bit later on. But we can definitely see in this arc that, all that hatred and all those ill feelings definitely run deep. with their whole society, and all of the references back to Arlong Park, with Arlong kind of playing an important role, being that Hody Jones was like Arlong's disciple, and he creates like the Neo Arlong pirates essentially. So all of like, it's kind of interesting because Arlong was like the biggest villain in the beginning of One Piece. So now that we're entering like the post time skip, it's almost like a revival, you know, and being able to have those parallels all the way back to the beginning as we're basically starting anew. I really liked that kind of symbolism, I suppose. There were definitely some really big moments though in this arc, with, I say big moments, they were actually really small moments, but I feel like they're gonna play a big role with the poneglyphs that were here. Robin read the poneglyph and it mentioned Joy Boy in the boat, which I'm obviously not caught up with One Piece, but I know the term Joy Boy has some major implications later on, and that's something that we should definitely look out for. But at this point, it's like, what's Joy Boy? I know some stuff. I'm not going to talk about it right now because I don't want to sound like an idiot, or spoil people who don't know, because I don't even fully know. So, but yeah, there's just some heavy stuff with that. So the fact that that was sort of name dropped here at this point in the story is interesting. We're definitely building up to something big here with Big Mom being introduced, and at the end of this arc, Luffy picking a fight with her. Yeah, we definitely see, and as we move on into the next saga with Dressrosa messing with Doflamingo and then messing with Kaido, so far in this saga there's big stuff happening with all of the emperors and the Yonko. Well, the Yonko are the emperors, but you know what I mean. This saga so far in the beginning here is shaping up to be huge. I say this saga, I mean the post-time skip with all of the Yonko and all of these major figures at play here, in the absence of Whitebeard. So I'm really excited to see what else comes after this. I'm excited to pick up with Jinbei later on when he shows up again, because my boy Jinbei is the GOAT for real. He's just got big Chad energy, so love my boy Jinbei. Also, Robin's kind of got the hots for Jinbei, said he was a handsome man. But yeah, I mean, overall, just the themes and stuff in this arc were interesting. It wasn't the most interesting thing that I've read. It wasn't the most engaging. I felt parts of it were a bit repetitive and annoying. I felt that it was annoying because it felt like Oda was really trying to drill in the idea of like all of the hatred that these Neo Fishmen pirates had. And it's like every chance that they got, like every time Hody or any of them would appear, it would be like, oh, hate humans, hate humans. And it's like, how many times do you have to say it? I get it. Like, you already said that the first 4,000 times. Like, shut up. And that was kind of getting to me, and sort of made moving into like the middle to end of this arc a bit of a drag, was how many times I was being reminded of their motivations, and their, I don't know, background. It just got to a point where it was annoying. All in all, I'd probably give this arc maybe a 6 out of 10, maybe even a 5.5. I don't want to give it too low. Once I finish up and like get sort of caught up with One Piece, I do want to try and do another tier list video, and do like a One Piece arc tier list, just so I can get like a final ranking, because I kind of forget what I rank other stuff in relation to this, but at the moment it's just feeling like a 5.5 to like 6 out of 10. Anyways guys, that's just sort of how I'm feeling about this arc, about this saga. It was okay, it was enjoyable, but I know that there's so much better. And as of now, when I'm reading Dressrosa, I know that there's so much better because, spoiler alert, Dressrosa is freaking awesome. I am loving One Piece right now, with Doflamingo and the whole Coliseum and the conflict, all of that stuff. Dressrosa is shaping up to be one of my favorite arcs so far. So I'm really excited to talk about that in the next One Piece review that I do. So anyways, as always, thank you guys for watching. And if you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I would greatly appreciate it. And let me know in the comments your thoughts, and maybe even join the Discord server, and that's in the description. We can definitely have some further discussion. But anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.